What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to look at a winning yellow Digimon TCG deck. I have, where I've got time and got good lists, been showing you winning Digimon decks over the last few weeks, and I plan to continue today with a rather nice yellow deck that has a lot of Tamers and a weirdly large amount of cards that came from the starter deck. There is a lot of yellow starter deck cards rolling on here, which is really kind of cool. Massive shout out as before to the lovely Alan Go over on Facebook, of Chosugoi I believe, who did share this winning list from a tournament that they went and run. So this is a battle tested list which has gone and done a win, as I like to say. So starting off with the Digitamer here, we see the regular 4-1 split. That's what we usually tend to see in lists nowadays. We got 4 copies of Kyupamon. When you attack, obviously it's an inheritable skill, it's a level 2. If your security is 5 or more, you draw 1 card. Okay, fine, it's going to wear off as your opponent takes a few security cards, but if you can keep your security above 4 for a little while, you're going to be drawing a bunch of extra cards, especially in the early game when you're trying to get set up and trying to establish your board. Drawing cards is very good. We've then got 1 Digitamer left we can play, so there's 1 copy of Nyaramon here. If this Digimon is rested during your opponent's turn, all of your security Digimon gain 1,000 power. That's going to kind of help you protect against your opponent's attacks, so that's rather nice. Having a look at level 3s here, we've got Agumon, the yellow Agumon. There's got an inheritable skill. If you've got 3 or more yellow Tamers, when you attack, you draw 1. I've already given away that we're playing a bunch of Tamers here, and I've already said that draw is really good. So then you tell me that we've basically got this lovely level 3, which is drawing you extra cards. If you got Tamers, which you're going to, sounds good to me. So there's 3 of those, and there isn't actually a playset of any of the level 3s here. We see 3 copies of the rather widely played, as far as I can see, Salamon. When it's destroyed, if your security is 3 or less, you recover 1. So you can basically throw that at your opponent's security, or one of the resting Digimon, or whatever, and gain a security card back. This is going to make sure that you're kept in the game for a while longer than you otherwise would be, which incidentally is a very good thing. And we've actually got 2 different Patamon at play here. We've got 3 copies of the Patamon that came around in the starter deck. That's got an inheritable skill whereby, and it is limited to once during your turn, but if you can lower an opponent's Digimon's power to 0 and they get destroyed, you gain a memory. And memory is what you use to pay for stuff. So this is good. We also see a couple copies of the Patamon that came around in New Evolution. When you play, you reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, and any Tamer cards you find you put into your hand. Well, I've already told you we're kind of relying on Tamer cards here, so clearly a very good thing. Now, moving over into the level 4s, we do actually see a couple of playsets here. We see a playset of Shinegreymon. Now, this is a lovely little card. It's got a lovely inheritable skill. If you've got 3 or more yellow Tamers, when you attack, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 2,000 power until the end of this turn. Well, bearing in mind I've told you we're going to be playing a bunch of yellow Tamers, and I've shown you the Patamon that gives you extra memory if you get to lower your opponent's power, or one of them, all the way down to 0, that seems like a pretty good fit in this particular deck. We also see a playset of Unimon here. This is your standard blocker, the one that came in the starter deck. It's got blocker, so if your opponent tries to attack you or your Digimon, you can rest it to redirect the attack towards it, but you've got to give up 2 memory when you attack. It's not really an attacker, it's there as a blocker, it's a standard blocker, there's one for every colour, and we do tend to see these coming around in an awful lot of decks. They're pretty efficient blockers in terms of cost and power and all of that. They're not attackers, but outside of that, they're pretty good. And finishing off with level 4s, we do see a couple of copies of another card from the starter deck, Angemon. When you attack, if you've got 4 or more security cards, you gain a memory. We've already seen a little bit of recovery. Very interesting to note that if you've got exactly 3 security, Salamon when destroyed will put you up to 4, and then if you attack with a Digimon that has evolved from Angemon, you will then gain that memory because you're on 4 security. Oh look, is lots of combos going on, and you can see here that the combos are basically built around recovery and gaining extra resources and having your tamers out, and it really is building up to give you extra memory, extra draw, extra security, basically all the stuff that you would need to have an effective deck. Well, that sounds quite nice. Moving over into level 5s, there is one that has made its way out as a playset, and it is Shinegreymon. When you evolve, you may play a yellow tamer from your hand without paying its cost. Now, you don't get any when played effects, which is not terribly relevant if I'm honest with you. There is one that's got a when played effect. Maybe use one of the other 2 that we're playing here, because we are playing 3 different tamers. Yeah, this is pretty good. Again, in a deck that's relying on tamers, this skill is particularly awesome. Now, elsewhere in level 5s, we've got a couple copies of the Angelomon from the starter deck. When you evolve, if you've got 3 security or less, you recover 1. Oh, look, it's more recovery. And again, it puts you up to exactly 4 security if you've got 3, which then will activate Angemon's skill. Again, the synergy in this deck is really quite a thing of utter beauty. And then we see a couple other level 5s. We got a couple copies of Shinegreymon. When you attack with a Digimon that's evolved from it, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 1,000 power for the turn. Bearing in mind you can combo that with Geogreymon. You can have them in the same evolution Digimon, and then you're essentially lowering by 2,000 and 1,000 at the same time. And then, of course, we've got that Patamon, which will gain you an extra memory if you can take one of your opponent's Digimon all the way to 0. Now, in terms of level 6s, we do actually have a few options. The main one we play, the one we play the most of, is Shinegreymon. There are 3 copies of Shinegreymon here, and when you evolve, you rest all of your yellow tamers. Remember, we're playing many of them. And for every tamer that you rest, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 4,000 power. So I've shown you a couple cards like Geogreymon and like Shinegreymon that can lower power a little bit, but this is the one that does a really good job of lowering the power here. It can be pretty awkward for your opponent. And bearing in mind, if you've got 3 yellow tamers out, then you are lowering the power by 4,000 3 times. Could be all on the same Digimon, all on different, or a 2-1 split. Oh yeah, plus you get an extra 1,000 power for every tamer that you have, and you can see where this goes around here. You've got the tamers which are all coming in, activating all of these skills, multiple Digimon that are lowering power, Digimon that get skills when you lower power, etc. I love the synergy in this deck, it's kind of beautiful. Now we do have a single copy of the Seraphimon that came around in New Evolution here, only the one, but when you evolve you recover 1. It's more recovery. We've seen recovery in this deck, we like recovery in this deck. And at any point, if your security is 3 or more, you gain security attack +1. But because you've got a lot of recovery in this deck, there's a decent chance that you will have a security of 3 or more, at least for a decent proportion of the game. And then finally, we got a couple of copies of that vanilla level 6 from the starter deck, Magnadramon. Now, this is a vanilla card, there's no skill here, but it's a 10 cost to play normally, 2 cost to evolve, 12,000 power Digimon. It's not special in terms of its skills, but it is both cheap and powerful. And sometimes, you got all your tricks here, like your lowering power and your recovery and all of that. But sometimes you just need to smash, and when you do, Magnadramon has totally got your back. Now, I keep talking about all of these tamers. We're actually playing all of the yellow tamers. The main one we're playing here is the one from the starter deck. And it does give all your security Digimon an extra 2,000 power, which means that your opponent is more likely to have their Digimon destroyed when attacking your security. But I rather suspect this is the most numerous one because it's a 4 cost. Remember, your Digimon like Shinegreymon just want lots of Tamers out, so playing multiple low-cost Tamers is going to help you. We then play 3 copies of the free cost Tamer. This is the one that came around in Ultimate Power, and it says that at the start of your turn, if your security is 3 or less, you get +1 memory. So if you can start your turn with, say, 2 memory, but you've got 3 of these out, you'll actually go all the way up to 5. And then we've got 2 copies of the one that came around in New Evolution. At the start of your turn, if your memory is 2 or less, it becomes free. And remember, we have had an official ruling that says you can use these Tamers in whichever order you like. So essentially, if you've got memory of 2, first you activate this to put it up to 3, then you go, all my security's 3 or less, each of my carries gives me an extra memory. Well, would you look at that, ladies and gentlemen? Would you look at that? Also worth noting that this does have a play skill. When played, you basically get to take one of your security cards and then put the top card of your deck down to replace it. It does have recovery technically, but all you're really doing is you're replacing the one you picked up rather than actually putting a new one down. You have been warned. Also, because this one has a coming into play skill, you probably don't want to play this with Shinegreymon unless it's your only option, in which case you do because it's still a 4 cost, but a lot of the time you're going to want to play this one from hand so you can search your security cards for what you want. And then finishing off, we've got a couple of option cards. We've got 3 copies of the very expensive Glorious Burst. Now this is a 9 cost card, but it doesn't have a security skill, so you've actually got to pay the proper memory for it. Some of the really expensive option cards can be used as really good security cards. This one can't. But the cost of the card in your hand is reduced by 1 for each of your yellow Tamers, so in theory, if you get all 9 of your Tamers out, which I realise is not that likely, but if you do, it's literally free, and you get to reduce one of your opponent's Digimon by 12,000 power, which is almost certainly going to delete them, and oh look, you're actually going to gain a memory back when you've got Patamon on the field, or a Digimon that evolves therefrom. So if you can get all of your yellow Tamers out, you can actually gain a memory by playing this card. How cool is that? And then finally, we see a couple copies of the other option card that we've chosen to play here. It is the slightly more reasonably priced, depending how you look at it, Eden's Javelin. It's a 6 cost card, but it does get activated as a security card, so it's quite nice in that regard. You draw 1, and one of your opponents gets 1,000 less power for each card in your hand until the end of the turn. So if you've got enough cards in hand, you could really go harsh here, but remember, there are plenty of cards you've got here to reduce power in addition to this, so this can just be one part of the puzzle. I've always liked Yellow since I first started seeing them because I love Patamon and I love Seraphamon, and they've got really fun skills and combos. And if there's one thing we can say about this deck, it's got really fun skills and combos. I'm a rather large fan. Shout out again to Alan Go for sharing the list. Yay! But I'd like to know how you feel about this one. So let me know in the comment section, would you? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk Digimon and a bunch of other games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun stuff. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.